Welcome to yet another shit content episode with me and a female girl who has opinions on video games. So hit that dislike button, Epic Gamers.
I own Vagine.
Oh, God, disgusting. How can you have opinions on the internet with that sort of gall?
It's alright. I say that I like Stardew Valley. People are like, haha, kick Stardew Valley. And it's like, yeah.
That's a real game.
It is a game.
Okay, today we have a selection of controllers. Some of which you might not recognise unless you are ancient. So,
like us.
this is going to be interesting because I have some very strong opinions on controllers, having used all of them. I think every controller on here I have used at some stage.
I have definitely not used one of them.
Okay, that should be interesting.
Some of them
then.
I have definitely used.
So we shall go through and discuss what is. This is very serious. This is like actual serious, but obviously I'm going to be ridiculous, as with every fucking video I've ever done. So. We shall start with the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, specifically Joy-Cons.
So so if you're using them as like their intended use, like in a controller form or using them with the actual screen, they're pretty good. But if you use them, with the fucking multiplayer shit, where you never want to get the one that's got the fucking joystick in the middle.
Fully
it's
agree.
Shit.
This one here.
It's just so bad.
I have not baby-sized hands. I don't have massive hands.
I have really
but
small
I'm a large
hands.
boy, so I have larger than average hands, but not like fucking meaty lumberjack fingers, okay? I don't like the Switch controllers for that reason. They are way, way too small for me. In fact, I've ordered some bigger ones, which will be here tomorrow.
Oh, you actually ordered those?
I actually ordered them, because I want to play the Switch more, but I can't play with these Joy-Cons. They drive me fucking nuts.
Yeah.
The actual control layout is quite nice. You've got dual analog skips.
I really like them.
The bonus to this, and this is one thing that will always fuck me off with controllers, D-pads. One thing that I don't want to get into, obviously, future controls that we're going to discuss here, but one thing that will always earn points is separate D-pad buttons. Not a rocker D-pad. Now, I know fighting game players are probably shitting themselves hearing me say this.
I'm going to drink some hot chocolate, so I apologise.
Because fighting games require... Well, I rate more preferable to have that rocker D-pad unless you go for like some weird fighting games don't, some do. Let's not get into it. That's not important. For me, I always prefer the individual D-pad buttons for, again, same reason. I've got big fucking meaty thumbs. Therefore, I don't want to be fucking hitting 7 different D-pad buttons at once. So, for me... They earn a lot of points back with that. But same reason as you. When it comes to multiplayer games or when you have to detach it and shit like that, I don't really like motion controls either. Like the Wii was built for motion controls. You were expected
really
to stand up in front of your TV and you were expected to beat Matt the Boxer as try as you might, you never would. That was intended for it.
He's like Shaggy Blanco level.
He is. That's what we need a tier list for. The Switch controllers, they've kind of half-assed it a little bit. Like, they kind of half have motion support, but they know that really it's just a TV console or a portable console.
When they try to do 1-2 switch and make it like, oh, but you can still use the motion controls, and no fucker uses them.
Well, that's the thing. It's not as accurate as the
Wii.
As the Wii, because the Wii actually used infrared detection along with the gyroscopes, and obviously Wii Motion Plus added a whole lot of extra trackers in it as well. It was quite sophisticated, the Wii Plus.
We're spending a lot of time on this. The Switch, I think, is an A or B tier.
I would say B tier, yeah. It's a means to an end, in my opinion, and the motion controls would gimmick. The D-pad earns about some points, but it's too small.
Yeah.
360.
I love the 360 controller.
I agree with you.
I love this controller.
It was a great size.
It was perfect, because I have baby hands, and it was still good for me.
I thought it was a good size as well. I remember the triggers being pretty good on it, too. I can't think of it. It's just a good controller. It's very rugged as well. It's quite a sturdy thing.
Yeah, it never broke, no matter how many times I threw it.
No matter how many times I died to, Dark Souls boss, quick. Pontiff Sullivan, actually not too far away from the truth. No matter how many times I died to Pontiff Sullivan and resulted to summoning 8 different people at once to help me with it, I still didn't smash it to bits, unlike other controllers, which we'll talk about. So that is A tier.
I really like the Xbox controller, I agree.
Fully agree. I think that was quite nice. We then have the Duke, as it was called. The original Xbox controller.
I don't like this controller.
Holy fuck, this controller. I never actually had an original Xbox, but I used to go to a friend's house a lot who did have an original Xbox. I remember trying to play Halo on this, was one of the obvious ones. I also remember trying to play Jedi Academy, and my god, this is the controller for the meaty lumberjacks out there.
I do not have meaty lumberjack hands.
If you have fingers with biceps, this is the controller for you. Fuck me, this thing is like the Nokia of controllers. You thought the 360 was invincible? This thing is truly like, this is going to survive the heat death of the fucking universe. Honestly, this thing alone probably contributed to global warming. Because the amount of plastics they had to distill to make one of these fucking controllers is unreal. Now, what was cool about this is it also had the black and white buttons, which I thought was quite unique. Which eventually became sort of the forward and back buttons, etc. Yeah, that was quite cool for the time to have those extra 2 buttons. It did actually give it a little bit more. They're cool, but fucking hell were they...
Yeah.
I'm going to have to say it's a C
I
tier.
think C tier is fair.
Like, 90% of the controller is an Xbox logo.
Yeah.
So, Super SNES. I'll be honest, I didn't like it.
Neither do I.
It was... Nintendo very much go through... always, one generation has a shit controller, the next generation has a good controller. Next one has a shit controller, repeat ad nauseum.
Yeah.
This was... Still, well, they hadn't quite cracked it. It was definitely better than the NES controller, because they rounded off the corners quite literally.
Yeah.
It was still just uncomfortable to hold.
I think they're both D tier.
No hand grips whatsoever. It was fucking terrible. Also, the build qualities I recall on them were shite. Like, I remember they were so flimsy, they always used to rattle when you shake them. They were just not good controllers. Iconic, yeah, not good.
Yeah.
PS4. DualShock 4, I should say.
So most people I know really like them, but I don't.
I actually like the DualShock 4 controllers.
But I have trouble with my thumbs reaching the middles.
Oh, see, now that's why I like them. The one thing that I would only score Xbox points down for is the fact that you've got the analog stick, obviously one at the top and then one at the bottom.
Yeah.
PlayStation puts them both equidistant, which I like, personally.
Yeah, because you've got normal sized thumbs.
Right.
This is the problem for me with a lot of controllers, is that a lot of them are too big. Like, when I used to play on my GameCube, my fingers were too small for the controller. Now I'm an adult, I can use it. But when I was a kid, I just couldn't, because it was just way too big, like, for me to actually use.
I'm not sure where to put this one.
I will default to you on it. I'd say a B.
I would probably say B as well.
I think that the fucking little tracker pad thing in
That's
the middle is
exactly
bullshit.
what I was about to bring up. Gimmicky. I don't remember any games using the mechanic. I think I remember playing a game...
Like a David Cage game, I think, used it.
Oh, I mean, I don't even remember, actually.
You could, like, swipe across pages with it and
Oh,
shit like that.
fuck. Yeah, it's a gimmick, let's be honest. It goes below the Joy-Cons.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll order these as we go, I think.
Yeah.
We've got Sega Saturn. I have fond memories of this controller, but as I recall, it was quite shite. The face buttons were different sizes, which was very weird.
Yeah.
So,
So
Sega...
you say that you like the GameCube, and that has different size buttons.
Well, that's actually the reason why I like the GameCube. This was different, though. You kind of had these little raisiny buttons at the top. Now, Sega Master System was a controller with 3 buttons, which is the next one actually on this list. Now, the Mega Drive and the Genesis, which was the sequel to that console, introduced in certain regions another 3 buttons actually above that, so that you had the 6-button controller, but all the buttons were the same size. Some were black, some were white as well, for those of you who need some differentiation, for like little kids, old people, whatever. Then the Sega Saturn took those top row buttons and made them smaller for no reason. So if you're a kid who's just spent, say for example, if you're a really bitter kid who might be in this room, spent your whole life playing on a Sega Genesis, or a Mega Drive as I had, and then they released this fucking Sega Saturn and all the buttons are like little midgety things that hurt your fingers after a while. You try playing Fighting fucking Vipers, okay, on that. Not gonna happen. I'm trying to think of the name of the big teddy bear man now, but I can't remember it.
You seem real salty.
It was... I mean, it's just it's a Sega controller, and to be honest, it was no more comfortable than anything else. It was more comfortable, definitely, than the SNES controller, because you can see it's much more rounded.
Yeah.
But the button choice for it was horrendous. It was really just not good at all. I think that's a C tier, below the Duke.
Yeah, okay.
Now, the Master System... I mean, you've got to bear in mind this was a lot more basic. The games were a lot more basic. Then you didn't need the extra buttons. It was Sonic, jump. That was it. You need one button.
I just didn't like the shape of them.
The shape was very weird because it didn't fit. It's like no one in Sega had ever seen a fucking human hand before when they invented these things. They're a very, very, very weird shape. They're also rickety as all shit. As I recall, they didn't have shoulder buttons either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there was obviously that big white thing there as the start button, which we used to hit all the fucking time by accident. Well, I did anyway. Maybe I was just a clumsy idiot kid. Yeah, no, that was not good. But it was a very basic controller. It did what it was supposed to. But they also had this really weird proprietary pin system on Sega.
Yeah.
So it was like a pin-based, like plugging in, I don't really know how to describe it, like plugging in a fucking Molex cable or something. It was very similar sort of design to that. But it was shite. And it was really unresponsive and really slow. You try playing Golden Axe on that, garbage. I'm putting it D tier, but above this.
Fair.
Slightly more comfortable, but less practical but you didn't need it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wii U. Oh no.
The Wii U's difficult because it was so fucking heavy. Like, because I played a couple of games on the Wii U, but I honestly dropped off of Nintendo, except for the handheld DS's, for the entire time the Wii U was out. I played a bit of Zombie U, I played Pikmin, because that's the best game that was ever created. I do like Pikmin a lot. But I played a bit of Smash, but I just couldn't on that controller. It's shit.
Well,
I think it's a C tier.
here's the interesting thing. It actually has some benefits over the Switch. So, first big benefit is Mario Party. There was a really cool feature where you would have to use the big main Wii U unit, but of course every console came with one, so that wasn't a problem. One of you were able to use that and have your own separate screen. So you could do, like, one of you, as I recall, used to play as Boo, and you could move around in secret, and the other players were looking at the TV and didn't know where you were, because you had different information on your controller. That's a cool feature with that. Like, for party games, it was a really great plan.
Yeah.
The issue is, for everything else, it was completely pointless.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Like, it was basically like saying, oh, look, it's like the DS, where you got something on one screen and something on the big screen.
Well, the issue with this as well is, unlike the Switch, they weren't independent. You had to have the console on, you had to be within range for it.
Yeah.
Like, they were still necessary, and it, of course, drove the price of the console right up, because you included this big unit that's capable of obviously playing the game, also with the console as well.
Yeah.
There was, of course, latency associated with it, too, if you were playing the game on the console, blasting it over to the device. It was
I still
hit
think
and miss.
C tier.
I think a low C. I'm going to put it above,
Yeah, in between.
above the Sega Saturn. No, I think it's got to be above the Duke, just because, like I said, the party feature, the uniqueness of it, the innovation. Without it, they would have never made the Switch.
That's true.
So I think it deserves some points for that, but
Yeah.
by itself, no one fucking bought the Wii U for a good reason.
Yeah.
Now we have... Oh, okay. This is DualShock. This is DualShock 1 with the analog sticks. So the reason you know that is because it's grey. So this was still PlayStation 1. I believe these were released around the same time as Alien for the PlayStation 1.
I owned one of these.
So the original PlayStation 1 controller is this one here, which I used to play Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone on.
Oh, I played that on the GameCube.
Fucking awful.
Not a good game.
This one, though, came out after that when games started being in more of a 3D space. So they sort of realised, okay, we can use the two analog sticks to move around. I actually can't really remember many differences between that and the DualShock 2. I think the DualShock 2 had vibration, and that was about it. No, I'm pretty sure that one also had vibration. That's why it was called the DualShock. I had haptic feedback, basically, whereas the original console... Yeah, I think that was the original DualShock.
I found it better than the current PlayStation 4 controller.
You know what I give it points for?
What?
Separate D-pad buttons.
You really like the separate
It's
buttons.
top tier, not top tier. I'm gonna put it above the Switch.
Ooh.
I'm gonna put it above the Switch controllers
Okay.
because for video gaming, far more practical. And bearing in mind, Sony very much have this design policy that is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that very much shows.
They've not changed very much of their controller design at all.
They, unlike both Xbox and Nintendo, have not tried to change the wheel too much, which I think has definitely suited them very much. I
Yeah.
deducted points from Sega for obviously trying to fucking mess with their old designs too much. I can't fault PlayStation for that. We then have the Switch Pro controller.
I haven't really used it.
I did.
What do you think?
I used it to play Smash against my brother. To be honest, it's fine. I struggle to justify the price with a lot of these Switch controllers.
Yeah, Nintendo really, really made everything expensive.
Because these are hyper expensive, and they're just a controller. There's nothing special about them. There are some unique features. They are less shapely, they are less comfortable, they're less ergonomic than just about every other fucking main controller.
From what the little I've held of them, they're kind of like too smooth, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's one like set bit of plastic. You know?
There's like no grips on there or anything like that.
They're not particularly ergonomic. I don't think they're particularly unique in any way.
I'd put them
I think they're...
below the Wii U.
I wouldn't put them below... yeah, you know what? Yeah, alright, fair enough. But they're better than the... For actual gaming, I think they're better than the Joy-Cons.
Yeah, but I think that the Joy-Cons
Fit a different niche, don't they?
I mean, like, when I'm playing games on my actual Switch, like if I'm playing... I'm trying to think of what games I'm playing right now. Octopath Traveler. I find that using those controllers is really satisfying. Like the feedback you get with the buttons is like really satisfying, especially using like the trigger buttons. They're really satisfying. And I don't see that they look spongier on the other controller, if you know what I mean.
I suppose the whole point is it's not a Nintendo Switch. You can't use it portably if you're using a Pro Controller.
Yeah.
And what's the point? Why bother?
I use it portably almost entirely.
Yeah.
I love the portable way of playing it, and the only time I do play with any of the controllers, it's the GameCube controllers they made, like the
Oh yeah, those are
faux
really
GameCube
good.
controllers.
I'm fine where it is, in hindsight. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a fair point. We then got the PlayStation 1 original, or the PSX original controller, without the sticks, before it went DualShock.
I'm gonna be honest, anything that doesn't have the sticks, I'm automatically like, you are not a good controller. Like, the Legacy is interesting, but it's not fun to play
You can't,
with.
in good conscience, put it in B tier because it hasn't got sticks. I think the lowest it can go is above Sega Saturn, and I think that's a good place for it.
Yeah, I
because
agree.
the button placement is more sensible. They're centralized. It's got a start. It's got a select. It's got individual D-pad keys. That was another thing. That might actually be my reason for why I hate rocker D-pads. Was the Sega Saturn and the Sega Mega Drive rocker D-pads were fucking horrendous. It wasn't a rocker so much that it was a joystick, if that makes sense. It was just one unit that rocked around. So those were not nice at all. Then got the DualShock 3, which I think many would argue is probably the ultimate iteration of
I also use this one
PlayStation controller.
to play on PlayStation 2, I think.
I'm putting up an A tier.
Yeah.
If it was down to me, it would be higher than the 360.
Really?
I prefer DualShock 3 to the 360
I
controller.
still prefer the 360 controller, personally. I played with though I am very biased because the only console after the PlayStation 2 I used, more or less, was the 360. I had an Xbox One, I did not like it, and I moved on to PC gaming. And if I use a controller, I use a 360 controller. Almost exclusively.
See, it's hard for me to justify one over the other because I like the dual analog sticks being parallel to one another, which is the strong feature of the Sony one.
See, I prefer them to be different spots.
Well, there's the problem right there.
Yeah.
Sony controller also has a separate D-pad, but the Xbox size and shape is much more suited to me personally.
Yeah.
If you could get those Sony features on the Xbox body, that would be like the ultimate controller. But I can't really justify one over the other. I think for long-term comfort playing, I probably would go for the 360. But for like precision, if I was playing like fucking fighting games or whatever, I would definitely go for the PS3.
Both, in fairness, pretty evenly matched when it comes to that. But for me, I would always go Xbox.
I think they both peaked there. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Nintendo GameCube.
So I still prefer the 360 controller, but I wouldn't begrudge you if you put it in S, because I know you really like this controller.
No controller has ever, since the original lineup of GameCube controller, had better triggers, and I will take that to my fucking grave. The only weakness the GameCube has over the other two controllers, it had one shoulder button. It had a Z button. You know, you have R1 and L1.
Yeah.
It had a Z button instead of an L1 and no R1. That's the weakness of the GameCube controller. The D-pad on the GameCube controller, incredibly good. Hopefully you can see why. The Xbox has got the horrible Sega-style rocker.
Very spongy.
What, do you think the GameCube controller was very spongy?
The Xbox.
Oh, right, the Xbox one, right, fair.
I'm backing you up.
The analog stick on the GameCube as well, really nice because it had, it was directional to some extent in that the stick itself was still an analog input stick, but into the plastic they had actually done the directions on it, the 8 directions, so you could snap the stick into a particular corner, which was obviously good for fighting games and shit. I really like the GameCube controller. Both the C stick and the analog stick are snappy and clicky. The button layout, the face buttons on the GameCube controller, fits the human thumb. That's the thing. I think it's the ultimate button layout. The button you're pressing the most, big front and center. B button, much smaller, generally used for obviously going back in menus and whatnot. You don't want to accidentally hit it, sensible idea. Then you got X and Y, which are literally just like a small thumb movement away based on the shape of the thumb.
You are so into this that you just smack
good
the keyboard.
shit. I'm telling you, whatever Nintendo was smoking back in 2003, they need to fucking get back on it because I think they've got the perfect controller.
Oh, they've made it again now.
The only complaint... Oh, literally none of the GameCube controllers we bought since have been anything like it.
Well, not as good, no.
The only complaint I've got... Well, the two complaints. Number one, no select button, which, you know, fair enough. Obviously, no shoulder button. You'd be surprised how many games are impossible to play on a classic GameCube controller. Like, I've got one downstairs, but and it uses, like, a dock to plug into USB. But you can't play shit like Dark Souls with it because you need that other shoulder button. Like, there's so many games that you just cannot play without that other one that...
Yeah.
For me, it's got to go there.
I disagree, but I respect why you feel that way.
I can't put it in S, because in modern gaming, for those exact reasons, doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work in modern gaming.
Okay. This is going to be a contentious one. I feel like it belongs at the bottom of the list.
It does, it's shit tier.
Because it's a fucking terrible controller. They were lightweight, they were flimsy, they were very, very cheap because home consoles were very expensive. They had to keep the cost down elsewhere. The D-pad was, as I recall, fucking terrible. To be fair, had a start and select. Apparently Nintendo forgot how to do that later on. The A and B buttons were also very good. No shoulder buttons, and again, it was flimsy. It was very, very lightweight. Incredibly uncomfortable. Literally a box. I don't know what they were thinking. Obviously, they were inspired by the old Intellivision shit. I'm not a fan of it personally, but the legacy it had...
It's iconic, but it is a bad
I'm not
controller.
basing this shit on their legacy. I'm going to be real. I'm putting it there.
Yeah.
Then you've got N64. Like I said, this is another Nintendo fucking losing their mind.
Bad.
The analog stick was a nice step for Nintendo. I think it was one of the first analog sticks, was it not? The PlayStation 1... That came out... Oh, God, I can't remember now. Fucking hell.
Know.
What's the first analog stick? Don't remember off the top of my head. It was a horrible placement. Like playing GoldenEye, there's loads of...
that in the middle.
You had to put your hand on the middle column, which is just fucking horrendous. It's a terrible shape. Again, Nintendo have never seen human hands. The additional buttons were quite nice, the green and the blue buttons, but I don't know if I like it.
Yeah, it's a bad controller.
I never personally liked it. I have no attachment to this car, so didn't have an N64 growing up. So I think it's got to go below the... I think it's got to go below the Duke.
I think it's got to go below it, like... If it's going in C, it's got to be at the bottom of C for me.
It's got the analog stick, though. Which, even if it is inconvenient, you never did use the analog stick simultaneously with the D-pad, so...
I mean, you're not wrong.
It's just a horrendous design choice, but it was a step in the right direction.
I mean, I guess so.
It's got to go below the Duke, because it's not nearly as practical
Oh,
as the
yeah,
Duke.
yeah, the Duke's way better than that.
Then you had the Dreamcast. Holy shit, where do I... Did you have a Dreamcast?
I've never used this. My dad had a Dreamcast, but I never used it.
I had a Dreamcast. I remember fondly the days of Choo Choo Rocket and Fur Fighters. They were... So the cool thing about the Dreamcast controller, A, you see that little window in the front of it? You used to put a memory card in there, and the memory card had an LCD screen in it, which A, meant your memory cards were horribly expensive, but you could, like, see the save blocks and shit, and it also meant that you could obviously plug it into, say you went to your friend's house and they gave you a controller, you could plug it into your friend's controller, and then you don't have to fuck with their saves, you got your own shit. It's quite a cool feature. It also had some other little stuff as well, like, say, I think it was a Sonic game where you used to be able to put something on it, like a little chow or something, take it away with you, and then you could plug the memory stick back in. Like, it itself had a little D-pad on it as well, an A and B button. It was almost like a little games console in itself. It was a terrible idea, because it was so... Obviously, it's terrible, but it's kind of like a Switch before its time in some weird way.
Nintendo were like that, though, weren't they? They did a lot of stuff that was before their time.
Well, this was Sega.
Sorry, it's Sega?
Yeah.
My bad.
Sega Dreamcast. Well, this was when Sega and Nintendo were still in direct competition. This was the
'cause
last...
This was, like, the last thing that they really did,
This was the final Sega product, and this actually had broadband capability as well. I remember playing Choo Choo Rocket online.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I'd put it above... Well, I'd put it below the Duke, I think.
Well, what I was going to say is the memory card was cool, but it's a fucking horrendous shape if you can't tell.
Oh, yeah, it's horrible.
It's worse shape than the Duke. It was horrible to try and play, and I remember the buttons and the analog stick being pretty good. I think the D-pad was a bit sketch on it.
Yeah, I'd put it below the Duke.
The other thing as well that I haven't pointed out, the cable to actually plug into the controller is on the bottom.
I hate that.
Which doesn't seem like a big deal, but fucking hell was it awful.
Well, that's one of the things I have with the Switch. Not the actual controllers, but the actual Switch. If you want to play it and charge it at the same time, it's right at the bottom. And it's not like a little charger, it's a fucking big stick, so you can't lean it down.
Yeah, and this was back in the days of big beefy controllers. And the power in it was, it's not...
Yeah.
I've got to put it below the 64.
Oh.
As cool as the little... memory card thing was, it was a massive gimmick that just drove up the price and had no practical use. I almost want to put it in top.
I agree.
Okay.
This is going to be a very controversial.
I think it was an incredible control scheme.
Honestly, people put down the Wii because you couldn't have like certain games on there that were more... Like, you couldn't put your COD on there or anything like that.
No, but to make up for it, you had boxing and boom blocks.
The Wii was one of the most successful consoles ever created for a reason. And that was that you could have your grandma play it and she understood
This was the innovation. Yeah, this was absolutely it. I really, really liked the Wii control scheme.
Anyone could understand
The
it.
nunchucks were great. Like,
Yeah.
people criticizing it. I thought it was fantastic. Like, a couple of buttons on the nunchuck in one hand that you focus on. The analog stick being on that hand didn't even fuck with people at all.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was genius. And then, of course, the Wii remote itself was sort of the right shape. If you needed to turn it on the side, it wasn't bad. Slot into a steering wheel for Mario Kart. So much you could do with it.
It was a really versatile controller.
Agreed.
And, like I said, any fucker could use the Wii controller.
Right.
And you could understand it basically from the start. Like, my grandparents had so many games for the Wii. My granddad bowled and, like, whacked his dog in the head with the Wii remote. And the Wii remote survived Charlie's metal skull. This dog has the thickest skull that's ever existed.
And bear in mind, it had a little speaker in it, too.
Yeah.
The
it
menu
did.
navigation for things like keyboards, which on Xbox or PlayStation are fucking horrible to try and type in.
It surprisingly worked well with the connection as well. Like, to say that...
Oh, yeah, it was accurate. That was the
Yeah.
cool thing. Like, it was actually very, very accurate with the whole sense bar tech. That was quite good.
Like, sometimes it was jank, like The Legend of Zelda, but, like,
Yeah,
it was fun.
I think it was actually really, really good.
Really good controller.
It's up
I
there.
have fond memories of the Wii.
I'm happy where it is. DualShock 3? I mean,
It's just another, so the same,
it's
isn't
the
it?
DualShock 2 with better, like, haptic feedback. I think it had slightly better sticks, slightly better triggers. You used to be able to buy little attachments for the triggers, as I recall. It's just this, but without a wire. However, me personally, I prefer a wire. Because I cannot be fucking arsed
Charging it all the
with
time.
charging it all the time. Now, to Sony's credit, they used USB on the DualShock, which meant you could plug it into PC, which was quite nice, and it actually worked. But it also meant it wasn't a proprietary cable, unlike some of the other things on here.
Yeah.
That was to their credit. The controller though is flawless. Like I mean, it's the same as the DualShock, but without a cable. I suppose you got the freedom. I guess I mean, arbitrarily, we kind of do have to put it above the DualShock 2
I mean, yeah, if you were going to go by, like, pure
functionality.
functionality and convenience, I guess, because like, if you gave this list to a younger person, like, if you gave it to your younger brother
Yeah.
who didn't play with wires,
And if you said none of these controllers were wireless, that would be a massive downside, wouldn't it?
it would be. He would not put the GameCube controller in
No,
A
she's a
tier.
fucking heathen.
So think of it this way: you're definitely a product of your time.
I think that's got to go there.
I agree, begrudgingly, because I also played.
Because you could just, at the end of the day, if
The
you like
wire.
it being wired, you just buy a long fucking wire.
Yeah.
Sure, it'll kill your battery, but you won't need it if you're always keeping it plugged in. Then we have Xbox One, as in the original Xbox controller revision 2. This was the successor to the Duke, but before the 360. You can see that they've made steps very much in the right direction.
Yeah, as I recall, was okay with this controller.
This has to go above the Duke, no matter
Oh,
what.
definitely.
More ergonomic shape, like much nicer. As you can see, it's much closer to the
It's much
360.
closer to
Very
360,
similar to the
which is
360.
my favourite controller.
It's still got the two face buttons, so it's still got the black and white button as well. It's, as I recall, it's much heavier than 360. Of course, it wasn't wireless too. So I think this goes top of B tier,
Okay, I agree
in
with
my
that.
honest opinion.
Yep.
Then finally, we've got the Xbox One controller.
I didn't like this controller.
I've never used it. I said I used it. I technically have, but I've never owned one.
I owned an Xbox One, and I did not like the controller as much. It sounds weird because it's not that much different to the Xbox 360.
It's smoother, to use a term you put out earlier.
Yeah, I didn't like the texture. It wasn't as satisfying.
Yeah,
to
they had a weird,
hold.
like, matte finish, didn't they, to them?
Yeah, I didn't like it at all. Like, honestly, I mean, it's not a bad controller. Like, it's obviously better than the Duke and everything like that. I think I'd put it at the top of C.
You put it at the
For-
top
for
of
me.
C. Wow.
For me, I didn't really like it. If I could have played with my old Xbox 360 controllers, I would have used them.
Well, that right there is a tier list.
We don't have any S tier controllers.
I can't justify any of them going to
None
S
of them
tier
are perfect.
because they all have their faults. The
Yeah.
GameCube is missing buttons. The 360 controller has the flimsy D-pad and it's still quite weighty. The PlayStation with the we've given our justifications. I can't put any S tier. S tier almost kind of implies the ultimate controller. However,
Yeah.
for me, I wouldn't always use a GameCube controller. There would be
No.
occasions where I want to use an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller or something like that.
I mean, like, I can't, in good faith, put the Xbox controller on S tier either, even though it's my favourite. Because, like you said, there's stuff with that controller that isn't great, like the D-pad, and I would have preferred if the trigger buttons were a little bit more. Like, I like it when you can feel the response.
That's
you know
exactly
what I mean.
why I've put the GameCube in.
Yeah.
The GameCube had mechanical ones, like so as you press it down, it would literally click when it got past the activation point.
I just like a click. I like to feel that something's
Yeah.
happening. That's why I quite like the Switch controller, because it like the buttons are so much more, like, for me they're quite clicky.
Yeah.
In a way that I enjoy. Some people wouldn't like that, but it's sort of like when you get a mechanical keyboard. Like, we both own mechanical keyboards.
Right, yeah.
It's satisfying to feel the click.
Well, I'm, of course, actually literally a professional gamer, so I need accuracy
you need the response.
and the feedback. I need the instant feedback at my fingertip level.
Yeah, I think that this tier list, I'm happy with what we've put.
I'm fine with it as well. I think I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Let us know if you disagree.
Which people definitely will.
They will. They'll say, oh, I grew up playing FIFA, the PlayStation is S tier. I grew up playing Halo, put the Duke in S tier.
The Duke.
I grew up playing Alex Kidd in Miracle World, move that Mega Drive controller up to S tier.
Yeah, if we were going by legacies, a lot of these would be changed around. But
Oh, 100%.
Going by, like, actual enjoyment of using a controller, I certainly have. I think that this list is good. In fact, if I went for an enjoyment factor, the Wii would be the one that
I
was
agree,
the
yeah, I
highest.
absolutely fully agree. Yeah. The versatility of it.
Yeah, it's really surprising when you think about it, because when I think of the Wii, I don't really. It sounds weird. I don't really think of it as much of a gaming console.
It's an entertainment center.
That's just awful. That's what the Xbox One was trying to be
Oh,
sold
God,
on,
yeah, it
wasn't
was.
it? An entertainment center.
But in terms of iconic, I think almost the list would be reversed to some extent.
To some extent, I think that the Wii would still be high though on an icon
Because
list.
let's be honest, you see phone cases, whatever, with
My phone case used to be
that. And obviously this has had a shitload of remakes. Like 8-Bit Do have done loads of officially licensed
Haven't
Nintendo
you got
ones.
a Raspberry Pi version?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. You've got a couple of those. I think those are SNES controllers. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
so.
I don't remember.
Anyway, I think we're done.
Yes. Thank you
for watching.
If you've got any complaints,
Send them to Sydney.
fuck off. Oh, we've already used both of those.
Bye.